granted, and I don't want them to.
So tell us a bit about the experimental leader.
Sure.
And the first thing that comes to my mind before you start is maybe when you're saying this experimental leader, it might make some of the leaders unease. It's like you're
Oh,
experimenting when you don't know, right? I'm not experimenting here. I know what I'm doing. I'm not like in a lab, right?
oh, that's great. I love that. Well, so I wrote the book because there's, a whole body of work, and some of it's just continuous improvement work. And I realized, I love Mike Rother's book, The Toyota Kata, and he talks a lot about experimenting, and it's fantastic. I talk about it in my book, and I realized that and I really love consensus decision making and how people come together to hold things. And I realized there's a real perspective shift in the idea of experimenting. So in an organization, and we've all been in a decision-making room where somebody will pitch an idea, and then that becomes Bob's idea. Well, we're going to go with Bob's idea, and we'll see if it works. But there's a whole different way to hold that sort of thing, because when you go with Bob's idea, what you're essentially doing is performing an experiment. And if you have an experimental culture and you pitch an idea and it becomes the team's idea, and the team decides to go ahead with an experiment, and we forget that Bob brought it to the table, and the team says, well, let's try that experiment with marketing, or let's try that experiment. And how fast can we create a prototype and get data on it to see whether or not it's an experiment we would want to try further? So what could we do in a week to get this out to our factory line? Or can we get it out to our customers to see if they like it? Or can we create a little tiny prototype that we could run as a program to see if it would work before we invest millions? Can we invest $100 and see if we like it? Then we've experimented, and we've done a small bounded experiment that we all own. And we've decided what our next experiment is together. And it's no longer Bob's idea that he lives and dies by. We've all decided just what the next experiment is to try. We've collected data. Bob doesn't know if it's going to work when he pitched it. He just brought an idea to the table. And we don't have to kill Bob if the idea doesn't work. We can keep Bob because Bob might have an idea next week that's good. So the idea of being an experimental leader is to lead the idea of experimentation in organizations, mostly so you get more ideas, not less ideas. Yeah. Because innovative organizations don't want less ideas. We don't want people to live and die by their ideas. And so the experimental leader is a whole body of different concepts and ideas that are designed to hold the concept of leadership for innovation.
Yeah, and I think that in that point of view, you're asking questions and you're checking them out, and you know less. You go into this unknown in a point of view that I don't know. I want to check it out, and you're open-minded to anything you might learn on the way, instead of I know and I'm going to prove to you that I know. It's like, I know that this is the right thing, and that's it. It's like my gut feeling.
Well, my guess is when you went onto this platform for your podcast, you thought, oh, I'm going to try this platform and see if I like it. And then you tried it. And I don't know if you had a time period you were going to try it, but you decided you'd try it. If you had hated it, you would have done it as an experiment, and then you would have tried something else. It was literally an experiment when you did it. We experiment all the time, but we think of it, sometimes we think of our experiments as failures if they don't work. But if we actually think of them as experiments, we don't have to fail all the time. We can actually just experiment and collect data and then make a decision. I did a diet for 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks. On Monday, I got on the scale. I hadn't lost any weight. I hated the diet. Why would I
And
continue it? I didn't fail on the diet. I did it to the letter because I wanted to do a good experiment. Diet wasn't a failure. I wasn't a failure. Nothing happened. I stopped. I tried to solve a problem I didn't have. Blam, done. No more
I
diet.
see. And it's more forgiving, and that to yourself and to others in that point of view, because it's not like you're wrong or you failed. It's just you tried something
I
and you
tried it.
learned from it.
I tried it. I collected data. The data didn't show me that it was a good thing to continue. So I stopped.
Okay, and we talked about being open-minded, and I think that you're calling it being neutral blank state.
Yeah,
Like,
so this is more around I in my book I talk about some reactive leadership styles, and the neutrals being neutral in leadership is the alternative to being reactive.
mm,
So when I think I talked a little bit about this earlier when I was talking about young people who are dominant perhaps as a natural state. Um if we when we look at we all know somebody who's probably a classic sort of dominant leader, somebody who tells everybody what to do. You go over here. That might be a useful leadership style if you're in the middle of a flood. Hey, grab that sandbag, board up that window, and they boss everyone around because they know exactly what needs to happen. They're an expert, but it doesn't really work in innovation because we don't know what to do. We don't have a path that we're following. So, so I like to say that we want to be more neutral in our leadership style. That's the goal, is to be more neutral, to be more curious, and it's really just an alternative because I can't tell people stop doing this reactive style that you do. So, some of the reactive styles that I talk about in my book, there's dominant leaders, there's influential leaders. So influential leaders are you think that you like them because they're very friendly, but they're also trying to influence you to do what they want.